next talk.
Yeah. Next one, Laura, Andreea, Petre.
The title is Streamlining Data Submission, a Guide to Ensuring Data Quality and Compliance with the ICES Data Screening Utility. That's
Hello, everybody. I am Laura, a software developer with the International Council for Exploration of the Seas. And today I will be giving you an overview of our data screening utility tool, its functionality, and some of the technological decisions that were made in its development. We will begin with a short introduction. So ICES data center hosts a number of data sets and databases, and the main validation tool used for validating these before they go into our databases is DATSU. This system has multiple components, and it has been developed mostly with Microsoft technologies. There is an SQL Server database, the web services and the websites are also built with .NET and some other libraries that have been used there. This is quite an old system that was started in the early 2000s, and as with any complex software system, it has had to change with the changing requirements as well as the evolving technological environment. There have been changes to add functionalities, such as an extension to include SQL rules in screening reports, but there have also been changes that were meant to keep up with the changing technologies and to improve performance, such as migrating the data management UI to a Blazor-based web application instead of Access-based UI. DATSU has, at this point in time, 5 main components. At its core is a database that stores format definitions and screened data, as well as the data validation rules used to check the quality of the data. Working closely together with this is the management user interface used by our data managers in order to define the data formats and the quality checks that apply to each data set. Additional to this, we have an API and a website that is used by data submitters in order to submit their data for screening, view the screening reports, as well as any information regarding the format. Another newer addition is a small R library, which was made in order to allow data submitters to incorporate DATSU checks into their data pre-processing workflow. Here you can see a simplified version of the data validation and submission process using DATSU. As a preliminary step, the ICES data managers need to define a new format using the UI. After this is done, the data submitters have multiple options for submitting their data for screening. First of all, as said before, they can check their file locally for a partial screening using the R library. Beyond this, there is the option to either manually upload a file for screening on the DATSU website, or for machine-to-machine interaction, they can make a direct HTTP post call to the DATSU web service. If there are no errors as a result of the screening report, the data can then be uploaded to its specific ICES database. Here we can see some screenshots that represent some of the previous steps. It's the manual upload page, an example of a screening report, as well as some of the API methods that can be used to grab information and screen the data. One of the most recent changes made to the DATSU system, and one that I was also personally involved in, was migrating the old Access-based format management UI to a newer web application using .NET 8 and the Blazor framework. When doing this work, we were focused on trying to enhance the format management experience and have better validation for format changes so that data managers are less likely to make mistakes while modifying a data set, as well as trying to remove some of the features that we found are redundant after 20 years since the system was created. Overall, I would say that the system has both benefits and limitations. As a very big benefit is the functionality that it provides for data screening, exposing information, and the comprehensive screening reports, but also the flexibility with which it provides this functionality, because it allows both manual interaction, human-to-machine interaction, as well as machine-to-machine interaction, which can help in the future for further automatizing the data submission process. A big limitation that we are currently facing is that the screening utility right now runs using a hang-fire queue, which can be blocked if there are large files to be screened. We will try to address this in future developments, and I will be talking further on the next slide. As said, one of the future developments involve a major change, implementing DATSU using message queues, RabbitMQ, and Mass Transit, which is a .NET interface for message queues. And doing this will help us avoid long waiting time and parallelize the process by having each data set have its own queue for the data screening, as well as prepare us for a possible move to using cloud services and modifying the architecture to be similar to a microservice architecture and more distributed by separating the methods for running different types of checks. There are also smaller functionality extensions that we are planning for in the future. One of those is to accept JSON file format in submission instead of just the text format and XML format that we accept right now, as well as adding logging for each change made using the DATSU UI by data managers in order to help prevent mistakes and be able to trace back what has happened before.
Thanks for the perfect timing. That's great. Questions there? Okay, I'm coming.
Thanks very much. So in the DATSU DB part, I've forgotten exactly how you termed it, but you said you had repositories of data formats and also either validations or routines or something along those lines.
Yes.
Can you explain a bit about how those validations are defined? I mean, it's pretty technical. We may not have time to get into it, but it's just kind of...
There are different types of validations that we can have, basic types of validations. One is range validation for numerical fields. One is vocab validations, which is very often and crucially used, which links to our own vocabulary server. Yeah, and then there are also some custom checks that can be made by the managers, basically writing an SQL condition that will be run on the database, and then the result will be returned in the screening report.
Follow-up question. In fact, actually, it's the same question, but I'd like to address it from a different viewpoint, in the sense that I don't know, is DATSU open or is it an internal system? But rather than that, the big question is, everybody has this problem, right? We're all cleaning data, but I'm desperately looking for open ways of integration, in the sense that, is there a formal way for describing check rules? And even more importantly, would there be at least an open standard for having reports on them? So we can integrate this with issue management tickets, emailing people about how to follow up and clean up their data, right? Or is all this, like we are doing, just invented in home and not open in any way?
I mean, it is an internal system, but we have API methods that expose all the format information, the type of fields defined, the type of rules defined, the rules for each field, for each record, for each data set. Yes.
We have to say, we all do this, and we can't share our reports, nor our rules, which I think is painful.
What do you mean by share, though? You mean if somebody
Laura?
else could...
Laura. Okay. So Neil Holzer from ICES. So in that timeline, when it said in 2000 the original Datsu was made, so I might well be the grandfather of that. So I've followed it for some years. It is an open system. It's based on all of the formats that are used in the ICES community. Some of those are what you might call, best practice, and some are, far from it, and they're interoperating with other things. But to jump straight to your issue, you're absolutely right. One of the things that we did a couple of years back is we were trying to benchmark, because we're looking at, do we need to reinvent Datsu in a whole different way? And we're still working on that data validation process in a different stream. And we basically sent out a questionnaire to all of the people that we knew that were working with, file validation, checking, etc. And we got a different answer back from everyone. And that answers your question, basically. There is a lot going on, and there's many really good tools and many really good ideas, but there is no general, oh, this is the way to go, we should all be doing this, and this is the the technology behind that. It's all different.
There doesn't seem to be a community that groups around this. There also doesn't seem to be a community. We seem not to find each other on these common grounds. So just an open observation at this point. It's not like I have a lot of free time to start that community, but yeah.
One more, okay, there, and last one, I think.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I very much appreciate that you exposed the test libraries to data submitters. It's a very important move. That's very, very helpful. It's not clear to me how extensive this is for the ICES system. It seems like it's everything. Every ICES system we interact with have their tests defined in that. Is that correct?
No, it's not every system. It's most of them. There are some systems that have their own data validation process.
Right. Well, I'll look up what it is, but I'm like I said, I really commend the move to expose tests so that data submitters have access to them. It will help us streamline things very much. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Let's move to the next